Good morning, everyone. All right, I need a little bit more than that. Good morning, everyone. That was better. I know everyone's not here yet, but we wanted to welcome you to DjangoCon US 2024. Thank you for coming to the orientation session. There we go. You can see. Yeah, all right. I've learned I had to adjust my slides a little bit there. The corners were cutting off at some point. But again, thank you for coming to DjangoCon US 2024. This is the orientation session. It is designed for first-time attendees or for people who are at their first tech conference or first DjangoCon US. But even if you're not a first-time attendee, it's fine to be here. Who am I? My name is Kojo. I am a software engineer at a company called RevSys. We work mostly in Python and Django. You'll hear a little bit more about them later. I'm also a DjangoCon US organizer. Thankfully, that's why I'm here. I am also the DEFNA North American ambassador. DEFNA is the Django Events Foundation North America. That's the nonprofit that puts on DjangoCon US. So that is that. I also used to be an accountant and got an MBA, so I'm one of those people who works in software development now, but switched careers from something else earlier, which is becoming more and more common. Back in the old days, it used to be just people who got computer science degrees, but that is no longer a thing. But I mention those things to point out that I do a lot of community organizing work. Those are just some sort of details about me that aren't super important. We're mostly here to talk about you. I'm here to talk to you about you and how you can get the most out of your experience here at DjangoCon US. Again, I am the orientation chair, which is why I'm here in front of you speaking, but I also used to do some other things. So you might know me from prior years of doing lightning talks and contribution sprints, but I'm also going to talk about some of those activities a little bit in the orientation to help you get a feel for what's going on and what activities will be available while you're here this week. So RevSys is the company that I work for, and I mentioned RevSys partially because it's DjangoCon US is something that's very important to us as a company, and one of the reasons that I work at RevSys is because I met most of that team while attending and helping to organize DjangoCon US. 7/8 of the company are here now, and so you'll see some of us wandering around. We're also a sponsor. Multiple prior organizers and DSF presidents and former DEFNA president. Also, you have probably seen Catherine at the registration desk, and Catherine is part of our team and is a big part of the magic that makes things work. So that is RevSys. I also want to say hello to our online attendees, and so I can't recall if this is being streamed for them now or not. It is, and so even though I can't see you, hopefully you can see me, and I hope to see you all online and in the Slack channel. And we are glad that you're here. We are still working on improving the way that we run a hybrid event, and so please give us some grace if things don't go as smoothly as we would like, but we are definitely trying to make sure that you have the best experience possible. So first timers, so how many people do we have who are here for their first DjangoCon US ever? Okay, so I think most of you who are here. How many people are at their first ever tech conference? Okay, a smaller number, but still, definitely some folks. Okay, that's good. So what do we want to do here at the orientation? The best case scenario here is to help folks be a little more comfortable by being in a strange space. We started this in 2016, the orientation, to help people who might be a little more introverted, which truthfully is a lot of software developers, help introverts sort of be more comfortable in a strange space surrounded by strange people. Because that's often what a conference can be, especially on your first time attending a conference. You'll find as you attend more conferences, it ends up being a strange space with people you know, which is much more comfortable, so that's good. Now, we can't eliminate all of those weird feelings, all that sort of, your discomfort with being around people when you're an introvert, or the discomfort with being around strangers, but we can try to smooth out some of those things. So how do we do that? How do we try to do that? Step one is an emphatic welcome. So instead of just having you show up and be like, okay, just go and do conference stuff. We want to let you know that we are excited that you are here. But then also we want to acknowledge certain realities. One of those is that being surrounded by strangers can be strange and weird and make you feel uncomfortable. And that's just, the term stranger danger exists for a reason. And you are not wrong if you feel uncomfortable because you're surrounded by a bunch of people you don't know. It's a natural response and it's fine. Now, take that discomfort and multiply it by the fact that maybe you are not part of the dominant demographic. You look around and you're like, okay, there aren't a lot of people who seem to look like me or to be like me, and you might feel even more out of place. Surprise, you're not. You're not out of place, you're in the exact right place, and we are very, very thrilled that you're here. So we want to make that clear. No matter how you might feel sort of internally, if you may feel sort of out of place or what have you, or maybe uncomfortable by being surrounded by strangers, we're very, very thrilled that you're here. And got a couple stories to sort of bring that point home. I was having a conversation a few months ago with a friend from, I live in Houston, a friend who is from that area. He attends a conference called DEFCON, and if you're not familiar with that, it's a conference sort of focused on security, things of that nature. He is an interesting person. He looks like, if you're familiar with the American band ZZ Top, he looks like he's their son. He's like someone from ZZ Top, married someone from a biker gang, and that's him. He's a very nice guy, but very sort of shy and introverted, so he is not super comfortable around strangers. But we were talking, and he made this comment about having these same feelings at DEF CON. The idea is that, you're uncomfortable around strangers or approaching new groups of people. But remember, it's something like DEF CON, very much like DjangoCon, everyone is there for the same reason. So you're at a place where you're surrounded by strangers, yes, but they're really just friends you haven't met yet, because they're all there for the same reason. They all have similar interests. They're all your people. It's the same thing here at DjangoCon. If you're attending DjangoCon US, you're surrounded by other people who have attended DjangoCon US, and so they have, if not the same interests as you, they have very similar interests as you, and so there's definitely a lot to talk about because you are amongst your people. So keep that in mind. It's also important to keep in mind that, so by show of hands, how many of you think of yourselves as sort of kind of beginners at Django? Okay, I'm laughing at some of you because the hands went up like this. People were like, yeah, yes, I'm a beginner, but I don't want to say I'm a beginner. And again, that's fine and that's natural. Lots of people feel that way. I would point out, one, you might not be as beginner as you think, but then two, even if you are literally as much of a beginner as you think, you still have quite a bit to offer, because that beginner perspective, that newer, fresher-eyed perspective is valuable to people who have been working in this, working with a certain software or with certain things for a much longer time. Because as you've worked with something longer and longer over longer periods of time, there are certain things that you just overlook. You have a different perspective that, as an experienced person, that newer people don't have, and so only newer people can bring that perspective, and it is very valuable. I actually, I'm sort of always updating this talk. I actually ran into this last night, talking to a friend. In my sort of free time, I play a game called Pathfinder. I was trying to explain it to a friend who had never played it before, and based on that conversation, I got an entirely new perspective on a game or a style of game that I've been playing for billions and billions of years, because I'm very, very old. So, but I point that out to say that even if you are as beginner as you think you are, that new, fresh-eyed perspective is very valuable to people who are more experienced. So please don't discount yourself. So again, we are very glad that you are here. One more story. This literally says Kojo Idrissa, which is Kojo is not Chinese. And so if you are Chinese or you have met other Chinese people, you would recognize that no, Kojo is in fact not Chinese. As handsome as I am in fact not Chinese. And so I point this out because I spent 2.5 years living in China, and while doing that, it was a great experience, but I spent most of that time sort of being the only person who looked like me, or who thought like me, or who behaved like me. And so, but I was still very welcome and had a great time and had great interactions with people. And I point that out to say that if you look around DjangoCon US and you start to think, okay, well, lots of other people here don't look like me, or maybe don't think the way I do, or feel the way I do, you're still welcome. Just like I was welcome in China, you are welcome here in DjangoCon US. If no one else has said that to you, let me again just very clearly and emphatically state, whatever misgivings or concerns you might have about whether you should be here or whether or not you belong here, you do, and we are thrilled that you are here. So that is the end of story time. I'm going to make a couple more sort of very explicit, very pointed welcomes, because that's how I am, and I often lack subtlety. If you're a member of the LGBTQ community, you are very welcome here. I asked earlier how many people were here at their first DjangoCon US, their first tech conference. My first tech conference that I ever attended was organized by a transgender woman. If you were here from outside of the United States, you're very welcome here. Please try to give us here in the US a little bit of grace, because we often tend to think sort of about ourselves as kind of the center of the universe, and forget other perspectives. It is something that, that we don't do intentionally. It's just kind of how things are. Again, I ran into this last night. I was talking to a friend, Daniele, about the WNBA. The WNBA playoffs started last night. For those unaware, WNBA is the women's NBA. It's our National Basketball Association. And Daniele, not a follower of sports, but also it's the WNBA, the National Basketball Association. It's literally for my country. Like, why would other people know about a thing for my country? I know like 2 or 3 other sports leagues from other countries. So again, if you're visiting from outside the US, I see some of my cousins here from Africa, and so it's good to see them, and some other friends from other parts of the world. See you, Carlton. We are thrilled that you are here. We have some different customs in our country than you might be accustomed to, but again, you are still welcome. Also, if you have different mobility issues, we are very thrilled that you are here. There's lots of situations where people are just going to walk around. Oh, this is just a short walk here, a short walk there. If that's going to be an issue for you, that's fine. Just sort of let the folks that you're with know that you're going to be taking a different mode of transportation or something. But again, even if things might not seem like they're initially exactly for you, everyone here wants you to be as involved as possible. So, and this, I'm going to say this now, this will come up again, this idea of a self-care sprint. We talked before about being surrounded by strangers and maybe being overwhelmed by that, either by being in a strange space with strangers, or the fact that a lot of information will be coming at you. The nature of DjangoCon US is that there is a lot of information, and that's sort of the idea, but it can be overwhelming. If you reach a point where you feel like you need to take some time away from activities to give yourself some sort of a mental break, that's fine. And while it might sound a bit sort of new agey or woo-woo or whatever, I'm going to point out, I point it out because it's important to help you get the most from DjangoCon US. Whether it is in person or online, you can't get the most from the conference if you're fighting with being overwhelmed, if you're trying to sort of, deal with the stress of all that. So just, take a moment to breathe. If you need to step back from things, to better absorb the information, to improve your experience and to help you become better with Django or with whatever aspect of the Django ecosystem that you wanted to learn. So, this ends the feelings portion of the program, maybe. And so let's take a look in a little more detail as to why you're actually here. So step 2 is you want to set your priorities. And this is sort of where you decide how and where you're going to spend your time and energy. Time and energy are both limited resources, and so you want to direct those properly to make the most of the conference for you, to get the most benefit for you specifically. This also applies to our virtual attendees. And so you might think, oh, well, I'm just at home and everything's fine. Well, there's still a lot going on, a lot of information, lots of opportunity to interact with people in Slack, things of that nature. So you have to direct that time and energy. So why are you here, or what made you decide to attend DjangoCon US? As you decide how to get the most, you want to think, okay, but what are you really here for? Did you mostly want to hear talks about new features in Django or in other packages or new software techniques? Are you looking to hire people? Are you looking to get hired? Did you want to get more involved in the communities actively? Did you want to learn more about how to enhance your local Python or Django communities? So that's sort of the homework portion. Give yourself a few minutes to think about that. Okay, like what was I really hoping to get from DjangoCon US? And then you can use the answers to that to help you guide where you spend your time and your energy while you're attending the conference. This is important because there are lots of things that you can do here, and there are lots of ways to interact with different people, and there's often, because of that, there's a temptation to try to do all the things, to try to attend every talk, to try to go to every activity, but often less is more by again, focusing on why you're really here and what you were hoping to get out of the conference, that can help you focus your energy in fewer areas and go more deeply into those areas and benefit more from those activities by limiting yourself. I'll also point out the hallway track, which happens in person and also in the online conference. So what we call the hallway track, if you haven't heard this term, is what is happening in the hallways between talks. And so we have a wonderful schedule that shows you when all the different talks are happening and what rooms they're happening in. But while those talks are happening, we have this lovely hall. Now here in this venue, it is a very convenient, literal single hallway that makes it fairly straightforward. But the hallway tracks are very valuable because this is where you can meet people, have conversations that you couldn't have in other places. The talks are all going to be recorded, and you can watch those recordings later, but the conversations you might have with people in the hallway track cannot be recorded. The people that you might meet, the friends that you might make, the friends you might make along the way are the valuable part of the hallway track. Now, if you're one of our online attendees, this is also important because there's a lot of interaction that will happen in Slack, and so conversations you can have with people in the Slack channel, interactions, things of that nature, those are also very valuable. So please don't overlook those. All right, so now we move on to the sort of the logistics portion. Where are things and how do you better enjoy the conference? So we talked about being in a strange space. This is, how many people, show of hands, how many people are from Durham? Okay, ooh, wow, there's like, okay, one person put his hands up twice, that's cheating. You're just one person. Now, of those few people who live in Durham, how many people live here at the convention center? I see nobody. I thought so. So we want to point out sort of where things are going to be while you're here, so you take a look at this. So meals for actually breakfast and lunch and then snacks are going to be in grand ballrooms 1 and 2, which is to my left at this end of the hall, or to your right. We have a quiet room. I talked before about if you need space to sort of breathe and sort of get away from things, if you're feeling overwhelmed, there's a quiet room here. That is going to be meeting room 2, which is almost directly behind this room. And then there's a lactation room, a lactation and wellness room if you need that. And that is going to be in meeting room 1, which is going to be almost right next to the quiet room. And so fresh air and sunshine, this is important, it's valuable. If you need it, you can go outdoors for that. Unfortunately, as I'm saying this, this morning it's kind of cloudy and not the best moment to mention fresh air and sunshine. Fresh air still, yes, but the sunshine, not so much. But if you go to the right end of this hallway from where I am to the left, towards the hotel lobby, and then make another left, there's a lovely outdoor area. So if you decide, okay, I just need to sort of be away from the conference and you don't want to go into the quiet room, you can go outside and get some fresh air, some sunshine, some lovely trees. And so those are things that are all available to you. And the restrooms in this venue are sort of conveniently located kind of in the middle of the hallway. So from either end, no matter where you're coming from, that's where those are going to be. And we are now in the junior ballroom. Most of the talks will be happening here in the junior ballroom or in grand ballrooms 3 and 4, which are at the far end of this hallway, just beyond where we will have food. So lightning talks. I'm going to speak briefly about these, but if you want to take your phones out and be prepared to take a picture of this next slide. So I'm going to stall here just for a bit while people get their phones out and open the phone app, because that's always the thing that takes much longer than it seems like it should, despite the fact that these days our smartphones are really just cameras that let you text people so you can avoid talking to them, because no one wants to talk to humans with our voices. We would much rather send them asynchronous text messages because we're civilized. This is how things should be. So lightning talks, if you're not familiar with them, are short talks with a 5-minute maximum. I'm not going to go into it in a whole lot of detail, but that's the idea. Is that it's a 5-minute maximum, a number of short talks. This link will take you to sheets where you can sign up for the lightning talks, and then our lightning talk chair and that committee, they will decide what talks are going to be selected and then presented. Sadly, our online friends won't be able to be involved in the lightning talk process. That may be something that we can do in future years. I'll leave that up for a few more seconds. Okay, anyone else? I'm looking around for people furiously trying to use their phones. No, everyone's fine. Going once? Okay. I told you this would come back again. So you might think to yourself, oh no, the feelings portion has returned. Kojo said the feelings portion was done, but he tricked us. No. This is now the science portion. And so I talk about the self-care sprint again because, and I'm going to say this a few times, the self-care sprint, and for those who might not be familiar, I'll sort of give a little explanation. This term sprint comes from Agile software methodology, the idea of a software development sprint, which is a short period of time where you're focusing on a particular building a certain specific feature or trying to get a certain specific thing done. I coined this term self-care sprint because you also need to budget a certain amount of time to take care of yourself. And so of all these different sprints that you might do, the self-care sprint is the only sprint that makes every other sprint sustainable. I'll say that one more time. The self-care sprint is the only sprint that makes every other sprint sustainable. It's what gives you the capacity to continue those other sprints. As such, it needs to be factored into your time and your energy budget. And so we talked before about deciding when and where you're going to spend your time and energy and how you're going to spend it. It is important to include self-care in that. Now, just like I said before, you have to decide why you're attending DjangoCon US and what you hope to get from the conference, and you can make your specific decisions based on that. You yourself have to decide what your self-care sprint budget needs to be and how much time and energy you need to spend on that. But please don't overlook it, because we want you to take the best care of yourself so that you can get the most from the conference. Because as I said before, if you're just like overwhelmed and freaking out and like, oh my God, there are all these people and so much happening, it's so strange, I don't know what to do, you're not going to be able to get the most from the conference. So again, when in doubt, I was trying to decide if I was going to say this sort of a goofy mnemonic that came to mind, but I'm going to say it because it's the truth. If you find yourself sort of overwhelmed or starting to panic, when in doubt, breathe in, breathe out. Doesn't just rhyme, it's actually helpful. I'm just going to say that. So contribution sprints. Hopefully some of you are planning to stay by show of hands, how many people are planning to stay for the contribution sprints? All right, good show of hands. So someone seems indecisive. So the contribution sprints are going to be happening Thursday and Friday. Those are an opportunity to contribute to open source projects. I'm not going to go into a huge amount of detail about those, but those are happening Thursday and Friday. If you look in our Slack channel, there's something new that I learned about literally just like Friday as I was packing. There is a sort of a newish initiative called open source design. So if you are someone who has like a visual design, UI, UX background, there are folks who are working on ways to help get more engagement from designers in the open source process. I'll put something about that in the sprints channel in the conference Slack. But those will be happening Thursday and Friday. If you want to make code contributions, documentation contributions, or governance contributions to open source projects that you work with, that is what happens at the contribution sprints. But again, you all should have access to the conference Slack channel. And if there are different things that you're trying to do or that you want to get done, you can organize those things in the Slack channel. Here's a link to our code of conduct. Some people might view a code of conduct as something that is restrictive, but in reality, the code of conduct is here to really help us all focus on why we came to DjangoCon US, as I pointed out earlier, and to help us get the most from the experience. And so by following the code of conduct, we don't have to worry so much about our interactions with other people. We can just focus on the task at hand, on why we actually came. So if you have questions or more concerns about the code of conduct, the link is here so you can take a look at that in more detail. And I think about a few minutes left. If anyone has any questions or concerns, you can ping me on Slack or on Twitter, or you can ask an organizer to ask me, or you can probably ask that organizer. They can answer your questions. I'm also pretty large and easy to see here at the conference, so that is an important thing. So we've got a couple minutes left. Does anyone have any questions or concerns? Yeah, if you're in the bathroom, just sort of, and it is kind of weird that this needs to be said, but you should probably leave other people alone when you're in the bathroom, because they're there to do the things they need to do just as you are. So. Well, if you're in the bathroom and you feel like, oh, well, should this person be in my bathroom? Well, yes. I'm sorry, is there another? Nope, another question. So, yes, leave people alone in the bathrooms. That's fairly straightforward, I hope. And if there are questions or concerns, then feel free to ask one of us. Any other questions, concerns? No? With that being the case, I will step aside and make way for the rest of our presenters. So thank you very much for your time, and look forward to seeing you all here at DjangoCon US. Welcome.